Today we're discussing how you can kill your anxiety and other negative emotions in an instant without therapy, because few of us realize that our power lies in how we respond to situations and not necessarily the situations themselves. And what I mean is that every situation and moment is at the mercy of how we choose to see it, and this is no ordinary battle because it's a battle of the mind. So if we seize control of our thoughts, then we unlock the power to define our own existence. I've recently begun to master this, and through the years I've practiced not being a victim to my circumstance. And it makes me think of a quote by Wayne Dyer that says, "When you change how you look at things, the things you look at change." For example, we had a dog named Tex, and my husband was like holding a piece of food in the kitchen, and we were both standing there, and he was trying to make her roll over, which is a trick that I had taught her, and she knows how to do it. And he was getting frustrated because he kept telling her, like, roll over, sit down, roll over, blah, blah, getting it, like, she wouldn't do it. And she was like, whining and getting, like, moving positions, sitting down, definitely paying attention and interested, but, like, something was, like, she wasn't gonna do it. And he just kept getting frustrated because from his perspective, she's just blatantly disobeying. And I kind of understand dogs a little bit more than other people, so I'm told. But I tried to think of it from her perspective, and so I suggested to him, why don't you move to the living room where we have carpet, because maybe the, like, tile floor would hurt her spine when she, like, you know, rolled over. And so he humored me and moved over, even though he was mad and usually doesn't care what the dog feels or thinks. And he did. And literally right when he came to the living room and said it, she rolled over on the carpet just fine. That's just a great example of how shifting your perspective, shifting from Tanner's upset, this dog is not obeying, you know, she's just disobeying, naughty dog, to why isn't she obeying? What could be in her life causing her to not want to obey? And so it goes from, like, you know, in that situation, blatant disobedience, naughty dog, to, oh, I wouldn't want my back to get hurt either. Let's kind of work together on this type of thing. And it's the same type of shifting of a perspective that can help us with anxiety, because when we're anxious, we think something bad is going to happen. And then it basically ruins our time, ruins our feelings, and I don't even know how anxious you get. Maybe you guys have panic attacks. I don't personally, but, like, yeah, we worry about stuff. And then the thing we're worrying about, a lot of the time, sometimes it does happen, but a lot of the time it doesn't. And so if we shift our perspective, and instead of thinking, like, I'm afraid of such and such happening, that would be so awful, and, like, envisioning that, we can envision, well, what if God stepped in and didn't allow that to happen? Or what if people are just better than I assumed that they are? Or we just stopped making assumptions in the first place and thought, well, when that happens, we'll address it, but it hasn't happened and it might not happen, so I'm not going to worry ahead of time for something that may not ever exist. That's what I try to implement and do, and it really does help a lot. Or if you're stressed, we're stressed because we're focusing on a big problem. And my husband was telling me when we were cleaning the garage, because it was a disaster, he was like, I just look at this and all the things that we need to do in here, and I get so overwhelmed that I just do nothing. And I was kind of picking through that and thinking about, well, what do I do? Because I don't really experience stress very much. And I was thinking that, yeah, I see this big, huge, disgusting garage. It was really gross. And I'm like, okay, where can we start? And how can, like, I try to simplify it. So we can do that in our life. We can shift our perspective from, look at this huge mess and this huge problem, I could never do this by myself, or I could never do this all today, to, okay, there's some trash that needs picked up. Or, yes, I can start working on this project for work, and I need to start by a rough draft, or a title, or an outline, you know? And another negative thing that I experience personally a lot is, like, general dislike for people, which is not good. But it arises because I just decide that they should be better in an area, and then I think poorly of them, and I'm annoyed that they're not, and I judge them, basically. But if we shift our perspective to, well, God has had so much grace in my own life for my own shortcomings. Maybe this person is inclined to something I'm not inclined to, and yeah, it might annoy me because I don't struggle with it personally, but I'm not them. And if I was them, I would struggle with it, and it would make a lot more sense to me because of yada, yada, yada. People have different experiences and struggle with different things. Just like thinking of God's grace, thinking of the fact that people are different and allowing them to do so, even in ways that are negative, can help us to dislike people less, because it goes from you're annoying, you're not like me, what's wrong with you, to you may still be slightly annoying, but you are just like me in that we have certain aspects of our life that aren't very good, and I can have grace on you because I want grace from God and everyone else. And this might sound really fun and cool and easy on a simple YouTube video you're watching on your phone or your laptop, but this takes a lot of work, because I've noticed, well, first of all, you have to catch yourself being anxious, being stressed, judging people, and say no, we need to put a stop to this, which is uncomfortable and hard to do in general. But also a lot of the time, specifically when it comes to disliking people or whatever, we blame the other person for behaving in a stupid way or just being, dumb in general, to justify the fact that we're upset at them or our negative feelings towards them. And even to justify how we act towards them, which in no way is justifiable, whether or not they deserve us to be, short or mean or whatever. If we're Christians, then we don't give people what they deserve, right? Because we're not getting what we deserve. So we can kind of want to think poorly on people or situations, so we can have a bad attitude, because it takes work and it takes surrender to the Holy Spirit to keep from having a bad attitude. So realizing that our perspective really impacts the way we perceive and experience the world is huge, because it's the first step towards change. And for a lot of us, this change is really necessary, because some of us don't like who we are, and we think that, well, I don't know how to change. I just keep repeating the same sins. I keep being a jerk. I don't like who I am because I'm lame and mean, and people are justified in not liking me. Or we don't like who we are because we have these bad feelings all the time, and we have this victim mentality that your feelings control you. And even though, yes, we can't really control our feelings so much, but we can feel a feeling and think through it and try to figure out can I improve this feeling? Is this feeling logical? Is this feeling an actual signal that's trying to protect me from danger? Or is this feeling based in, old trauma, or my assumptions, or me just judging people? Or is this situation overwhelming me, even though it's something I am capable of accomplishing, and I just need to take some time and sit down and think through how to cut it into little pie pieces that I can actually eat and take care of? So yeah, feelings are important, and you can't really control them, but you can control your response, and you can control how much they impact your life. Oh, my Christmas tree's in front of us, and I got flashing lights. That's why everything's going crazy behind me. Forgot to mention that. But the Bible actually talks about this shifting of perspective specifically for Christians, and that we're encouraged to do it. Here is 2 Corinthians 4 in verse 18. It says, "So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." And what is unseen in a Christian's life? A big part of it, anyways. God. At least right now he's unseen. And Oswald, he said he's dead. I just read my utmost for his highest. Anyway, he said recently, that we should think of the biggest factor in our life is God. So it's oh yeah, I've got this huge work thing, I don't know how to figure it out, or this coworker's stinking annoying, or my toddler has health issues. We should, see that problem and then think, but God's here, and he can literally do anything he wants to, which is a pretty cool thing, right? And yeah, I'm not saying that God is going to solve all of our problems. Look at Jesus' life. He came and had a big problem, and he died from it, right? We're not here to live peachy lives just because we're Christians. But we do know from Romans 8:28 that all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And I apply this to negative situations a lot, because it is not saying that God's going to keep us from negative situations. It's saying that when your spouse cheats, you are going to work through it with God and find healing as you and your spouse look to God in this horrible situation. And the marriage that you have after the affair is going to be more transparent, stronger, and you'll have a better understanding of each other's needs compared to the marriage that you had before. So he's not going to save us from these bad things happening. Life sucks. We know that. We live here. He's just going to take what the devil meant for like splitting up your marriage and having your kids have divorced parents. He's going to take that whole crisis, and yeah, it sucks to get through, but he's going to turn it into a marriage that was better and stronger than before, and parents who are better and stronger than before. But the thing is, through this whole situation, whatever you're facing, you've got to be looking for God and looking to learn the lesson. We can, pray through situations and talk to God and all this stuff. I find that actually analyzing a situation and thinking through like, okay, how can I grow morally? How can I grow my faith? How can I be responsible? How can I do whatever the Bible tells me to better through this situation, and actually keeping an eye out for the lesson that God has allowed to come into your life. So the perspective shift here is it's not a problem, it's a lesson. It can actually help you learn the lesson and get through it faster, I think. And something I'm coming to realize is that a big part of this whole perspective shift that is so life-changing has to do with just denying your perspective in general. And that's really hard to do because our perspective is constantly in front of our eyes and our understanding the entire time we're going through something. But we know that we are, number one, finite beings. Also, we're not all-knowing. We're not omnipresent. Our perception and perspective is very limited. When we realize that and we kind of acknowledge, okay, I feel this way about someone because of who I am, then we can take some time to say, okay, right, but God knows who they are. God sees their heart. He sees their past. He sees, their way of thinking. I don't see those things. And taking a step back from your perspective, which is not all truth at all, man, it just gives you so much freedom because we really get a lot of negative feelings that we have to live with because we're mean to other people. We think negative feelings are like mostly anxiety or like sadness because of what people do to us. But we've also got anger, hatred, annoyance, irritation. Those are things that we kind of blame on other people because they did something to make us mad or to irritate us, or they're just plain stupid. But when we give them grace and stop viewing them like that and stop judging them, we actually live happier, better lives because of it. In fact, Luke 6:37 warns us of this, and it says, "Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven." Which is really cool because it sounds like we can actually impact the way that God looks on us, the grace He gives to us, and the judgment He gives to us by how we treat other people and the judgment we bestow upon them. The Bible tells us how to judge people. Judge a tree by its fruit. We are still supposed to hold each other accountable. Iron sharpens iron. But this is very situational. We need to tell the truth in love. Some people aren't even Christians, so why would we expect them to live like it? Like it's a whole thing. But I'm just saying, in general, we should not be judgmental people. Something my husband taught me that I wasn't so much taught growing up is the value of taking time away from an issue. And mostly he taught me this in arguments because I would chase him around the house and try to figure stuff out, and he would be like, I need space, leave me alone. It was a fiasco when we were first married. But anyway, I've learned the value of just taking a step back. I'm getting really pissed off here. Let's set it down, and that gives time for your emotions obviously to settle down, but also to think through something a little more logically and to remember God exists. What would Jesus do? And even to spend time in the Word reading about what God would do, or reground yourself, basically is what I'm saying. Remember the basics, remember your morality and what you're supposed to do here. So this again is an act of broadening your perspective and bringing to mind these things that are not in our nature. Proverbs 14:12 tells us there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. So we really should be second-guessing ourselves and falling back on God. And it's great that He came to live with us, and we can invite Him into our hearts, genuinely at any moment. Because he's here, he's ready, he's waiting, you know? It's just amazing that he's allowed himself to come so low, or whatever you want to say, like, you know, to live inside of our bodies and to actually be here with us so closely. And kind of thinking back to the quote, you know, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Honestly, I just think of like someone who might be addicted to watching adult content. And they consume it and get this whatever out of it, the high and stuff. But when you change the way you look at things, when you change the way you look at the women or the people, whatever, and you remember that Jesus died for them and they have a mom and like they are supposed to have a spouse also at some point, most likely, you probably wouldn't be getting the high that you would be if you look at them as, well, whatever character they're playing, or I don't even know. I don't watch that type of thing. But you know, it will sour your taste. Even when you might look at someone who you think is a loser and you think through like, okay, yeah, sure. They don't really live the way I do and they don't seem to be accomplishing success like me or achieving it. But literally, do they have a lower IQ? Or did their parents abuse them? I mean, don't you think judging them and hating on them in your mind would be way less satisfactory when you remember that they just weren't given the lot in life that you were? I think so. That's what I have found. It makes me like, because I have struggled with judging and I struggle with pride in general. But yeah, it's like you kind of look at someone and judge them really quick because it's your gut reaction or whatever, and then you look at yourself and you're like, wow, I'm the loser because I'm the one putting people down for like literally no reason. I could see someone from our small community, I live in a small town, that I know, and like I'm like, oh, they're not doing this, they didn't graduate high school, and I'm just like, I could see them walking on the road and I'm in my car driving past, and it's like, what's it to you, myself? Who freaking cares? Look at you. You did graduate high school, but you're the one sitting here judging for no reason. Like, that's way worse. I'm getting really amped up about this. I'm sorry. But yeah, changing your perspective can really sour the fun in judging or just watching people and thinking of them a certain way that isn't godly. So when you're feeling anxious or stressed out, I would really encourage you to take a step back, take some time away, get a different perspective, and think through, like, is this something that I should actually be worrying about? Does this make sense for me? Or am I just kind of freaking out for no reason? And so getting a perspective shift can really help you, and I hope that it does. I hope this video is going to impact the way that you live your life. These principles have really impacted mine, and I find that my life is filled with emotional freedom and rest a lot more than a lot of people. And I feel like saying a lot more than most people. So if I can bestow some of that to you, that'd make me really happy. If you enjoyed this video, you can like, share, and subscribe. I don't remember. What do you want to talk about next week? I say we should talk about how spouses are really annoying and why that's so important. It's just something I've been thinking through. No, my husband's not going to watch it. Actually, I don't know. Anyway, if you want to catch that, you can subscribe too, and I'll post that next week. But thanks for joining me.